The Aniara is an interplanetary spaceship meant to take humans to the terraformed Mars because the environmental collapse of Earth has made the planet barely habitable. The effects of this crisis happening in the distant future can be seen both on land and on the human population traveling off-world in search of a better life. The vessel works as an all-encompassing traveling hotel, which has everything one can possibly imagine, from restaurants and malls to spas, pools, and nightclubs. As the captain would later reflect, it's their own little planet they have built inside of a spaceship. In fact, as you will discover, every aspect of the ship is meant to mirror life on Earth, both literally and symbolically. The main character whose experience we will follow on the Aniara is a Mimaroban, or Mr. for short. A Mimaroban is a person that works in a special part of the ship, the Mima, that is meant to give people an escape from the realities of their current situation and virtually whisk them away into a time when the Earth wasn't destroyed. The technology is so potent that everyone who steps inside the Mima room instantly falls into a kind of daze that can only be avoided by proper training to gain focus and control over its effects. Mr. has had such training, but she can still use the benefits of Mima and lose herself inside it for a brief moment of surrender before her shift begins. The astronomer is one of the side characters in the film that will reflect its darker themes more directly later on, but for now, she explains how the passengers can expect their journey on the Aniara to look like for the next 3 weeks. The passengers are led into their rooms by the personnel and aided to strap into their beds until the gravitational load has adapted to the vessel's cruising speed. Mr. will be sharing a bunk bed with the astronomer for what is to be a routine voyage for the two of them. The beginning of the first hour on the Aniara goes on without a hitch. Some of the passengers have gathered before the Mima to enjoy its effects, though not many are interested in them for the moment. Mr. takes the passengers inside the Mima room and explains how it works. The Mima's control over one's consciousness becomes more intense as one stays in its proximity. Mr. uses one of the passengers, Kepiba, to show the rest what they can expect to see once the full effects of Mima have entered their minds, as well as their memories, and she does it through a tiny monitor device. Suddenly, the Aniara experiences a critical hit that pretty much destroys its propulsion systems. The command bridge tries to do some damage control by ejecting the fuel so they don't explode, while the pilot, Isagel, observes how their course has been dramatically altered because of the accident. Some of the systems on the ship come back online, but the trouble with Aniara is only just beginning, as the captain will soon inform everyone on board. The crucial information that the captain shares with the passengers and everyone else is that they no longer have control of the ship, and to get back on course they will have to wait for a celestial body to use its gravity and slingshot back on track. However, since they don't know when they will be able to do that, the journey to Mars will be prolonged from 3 weeks to a couple years, which naturally doesn't bode well with the passengers. To illustrate how some handle the news, we see a woman in the next scene, the Beetle, being dragged into Mima by Mr. to calm her awful panic attack. Kepiba is there to help, but she checks out fast as well. It's week 3 since the accident and things seem superficially calm on board the Aniara. The passengers find different ways to escape their daily realities on the ship, so Mima also gets many more visitors than before. Realizing this new influx of customers, Mr. wants to speak to the captain so that he could assign more people to the Mima to help her out. She gets stressed as well and can't sleep, so she goes to the pool to relax, where Isagel goes to do the same. Mr. is attracted to Isagel but doesn't know how to approach her yet. When she gets back to her room, she has an illuminating conversation with the astronomer, who tells her something she probably would have been better off not knowing. The old woman, in a very dry, matter-of-fact fashion, tells Mr. that they will not be coming in close contact with a celestial body anytime soon. In fact, she's sure the captain is aware of that as well, but he's keeping the information from the others to avoid the negative reaction it can produce. Mr. also has trouble handling the fact that they are doomed to drift in the vastness of space for an indefinite amount of time, even though, unlike most of the others, she has no one waiting for her on Mars. She panics and tries to find some comfort in alcohol and Mima, lying down in the fetal position and finally drifting off in the virtual space of the device. Mr. isn't the only one suffering panic attacks, as we can see in the next scene, where a passenger has also found out the same truth from the astronomer. While trying to calm him down so she can take him to Mima, Mr. drops another devastating truth about the hellish life conditions on Mars, which he, fortunately, doesn't hear because his translator knows better than to share it with him. Mr. takes the passenger to the already full Mima and finds him a spot next to the others, while also managing to grab the security guard just before he can fall completely under its control. Sometime later, she finally gets to see the captain to make her request for assistance in Mima, telling him that she will need around 5 to 6 people that will also need to be trained to resist Mima's images. Mr. thinks that the influx of clients in Mima will be even greater when the people find out that they won't be able to turn back. The captain agrees to grant her request and tells her that the rest of the people will be informed of the situation once they get used to eating the algae that will soon become their only source of food. After 3 years of drifting, the algae situation on the Aniara is causing a little bit of a problem with the filtration systems on board. The passengers are keeping it together somehow, mostly by using Mima or other ways to divert their attention away from their doomed state. Mr. keeps falling more for Isagel, even though she has one-night stands with men that mean nothing to her. She talks to the astronomer about what she feels for Isagel, but the woman just diverts the conversation into a fatalistic and defeatist acceptance of the human condition and all its marginal nonsense like love. In her worldview, their lives, their loves, and the Aniara are just as minuscule and meaningless in the vastness of space as the little bubble of air in her whiskey glass. Mr. tries to escape those ideas in the comfort of Mima, but as she will soon discover, the device itself is no better at dealing with their predicament than the humans seeking refuge in her delightful calm, as it can be seen in the horrible images of the birds disappearing or dying. The Mimeroben can't find what exactly is the problem with the device as clients begin to come in for a session. Mr. welcomes all, but Mima begins unraveling once again, spouting what seems like nonsense and causing terrible nightmares in the clients. Mr. sees the nightmares with her monitoring device, first in one client, then in all of them, and quickly calls quits to the session, getting everyone out and not allowing anyone in, regardless of how many have flocked to enjoy the serenity of Mima. We see Libeetle again, very disappointed that she won't get into Mima for a session. Mr. gets a scolding from the captain for closing down Mima, even though she reminds him that it needs to rest, considering it can see and feel everything that the passengers have gone through. The captain doesn't care for her explanations because he wants to keep the new ecosystem on the ship working, and Mima is a great part of that. Mr. continues to work with Mima, jotting down everything that the magical device states, as a kind of therapy to let it get out its innermost thoughts about the horrible visions it has received of mankind. Mima is on its very edge when people begin to enter the room and don't respond to Mr.'s yells to get out. Libeetle stares into the dying device when it explodes in what was probably a way to end its own life and suffering. In the next shot, we see Mr. who is not taking Mima's death easily. But neither is anyone else on the ship, with Libeetle already spreading rumors about Mr. and her involvement in Mima's demise. Isagel goes to talk to the captain on Mr.'s behalf so that she doesn't get punished for what happened, but since he needs a scapegoat for his own wrongdoing, he's willing to accept the rumors about Mr. as truth. The captain taunts Isagel in their conversation, prompting her to hit him, so she gets arrested. And Mr. faces the same fate just some moments later as the guards catch her in one of the hallways of the Aniara and beat her up quite gruesomely before they take her in custody. The 4th year on the Aniara rolls by and things become truly dire. Some of the people on board, in need of any kind of meaning and reassurance, begin to form cults, while others commit suicide in ever-growing numbers. Isagel and Mr. have gotten close during their years of imprisonment, and we can see them now getting chosen to be part of the additional staff of the Aniara, tasked to maintain some of the ship's most important systems and resources. The two of them, however, get different directions, with Isagel getting back to logistics and Mr. getting a teaching position. They even get new lodgings together, which just strengthens their bond further. When Mr. walks through the ship after her 1-year imprisonment, she can see how changed and rugged it has become. Just like the cult of science which Mr. is now a part of as a teacher, the other more nonsensical ones continue to grow on the Aniara. This is something that Isagel and Mr. find out during a session in the spa when Kepiba asks them to be a part of the Libeetle and the Libeetle cult. Mr. rightfully thinks that they would want to sacrifice her for killing Mima, but Kepiba tells them her cult believes that Mima killed herself out of grief. In the next sequence of events, we see the ritual to canonize Mima that begins innocuously with the ceremonial painting of their faces and a prayer for Mima. Libeetle leads the women of the cult into another room where the men join them and opens the floor for a ceremonial gathering. The people of the Libeetle cult have exchanged the pleasure they would have received from Mima for the pleasure they can now receive from each other. While Mr. is fully immersed in the experience, Isagel doesn't seem too excited for it but sleeps with one of the men nonetheless. In the 5th year of Aniara's endless journey, Isagel and Mr. are expecting a baby, but Isagel, unlike Mr., isn't happy about it, dispassionately reflecting on their hellish predicament on the ship. In a bid to help Isagel and the others, Mr. decides to build a beam screen outside the windows of the Aniara to bring back the light on the ship. Sharing that idea with the astronomer, who has been in a constant drunken stupor for the last couple of years, isn't the smartest thing she could do. The drunkard laughs at her, saying that she wants to build a substitute for what itself was a substitute. That doesn't stop Mr. from trying to get to the captain and share her ideas with him. His reaction, while not as full of ridicule as the astronomer's, is a definite no, explaining that her place as a teacher is infinitely more important for the future generations of the ship than that of a light beam, shielding them from reality. Mr. needs to grow up because her baby is on its way too, as can be seen in the next shot of Isagel giving birth in their bathtub. After the baby is born, Isagel's doesn't get any better. In fact, she's probably suffering from postpartum depression. Taking a bath with the infant, Isagel is seen holding it underwater for a bit longer than she should, until she is called out to the bridge. Mr. joins them there and she finds out that some kind of vessel is approaching the Aniara. Based on their observations, it is not a rescue ship, regardless of what the rumors on board might want to make it look like. Isagel and the captain are of the impression that the vessel might be a probe carrying fuel and fuel rods for the ship. Even Isagel is happy about that discovery. The Aniara rejoices about a future in which they can restart their engines and turn back home when the vessel arrives in a year or so. The 6th year comes with a different attitude and a different outlook on the Aniara. The crew is getting prepared to grab the incoming vessel they see as their saving grace by performing simulations with the ship's grappling hooks. It's not a situation lacking in stress for the commanding crew, considering how important they see the mission, but at least the passengers have some hope for the future. The vessel approaches finally and the crew instructs the passengers to get into their cabins and lie down because they will be upping the gravity on the Aniara considerably so they can slow it down and grab it. The procedure starts with Isagel on the command bridge. The vessel comes close to the starship and they engage the grappling hooks as everyone waits in suspense. They catch it successfully and reel it inside the Aniara with a whole team coming in to inspect it. The vessel turns out to be a complete mystery to everyone. In a briefing with the captain, one of the younger engineers suggests that their methods of investigating might actually be outdated, while the second in command questions if they should have even said that it was a rescue probe. The captain, however, has an entirely different outlook, primarily concerned with the psychological well-being of the crew, noting how much their motivation was umped when they heard about the probe. He even says that they should have lied it was coming long before they actually saw one. Mr.'s and Isagel's child is growing up happily, with two mothers who have found a new joy in life because of what they expect the probe to be. However, that is soon to change when Mr. finds the astronomer drunk again at one of the bars on the ship. She knows about the probe and soon everyone else will too. However, the way they try to extract data from the probe, nothing comes up with any answers. Luckily, the astronomer is there to remind everyone working on the probe to adopt a nihilistic attitude as she has once again succumbed to. In an ironic twist, the captain tells her that she will be receiving an award for her discovery since she was the first one to see the probe on the telescopes. He informs the rest of the people investigating the probe that he will not be sharing their lack of discoveries with anyone else and, furthermore, the captain forbids them from sharing it also. The astronomer aptly comments that they are in a coffin hurling through space, which angers the captain enough to shoot her dead. Mr. reads the eulogy during the astronomer's funeral on the motivation and happiness that was felt by everyone before his scene leaving their minds, just as the astronomer's body is sent out to drift alone in space. One might think that Mr. would take her death the worst, doing hallucinogenic drugs with her friends, but they aren't doing that great either. While the Aniara is going through some kind of space storm, Mr. goes dancing and falls back to her old ways before she met and fell for Isagel, leaving her alone in their room with the baby. The storm creates another problem on the ship, whose effects are seen in a momentary turbulence, with the aftermath of death reaching throughout the entire ship. Libido dies during the space storm like many others. Mr. rushes into her quarters and finds Isagel and the baby still alive, but not for long. Isagel isn't doing very well. Sometime later, the captain has at last given Mr. the go-ahead to make her beam screen outside of the ship, so she continues working, trying haplessly to keep it together. Isagel tries to be happy for her, but she has other things on her mind. She sees how happy Mr. is and tells her that she admires her for keeping her hopes up. After many years of darkness, Mr. finally gets her beam screen running outside of the ship. She prances back happily to her room only to be struck by the tragedy that has occurred inside, of Isagel killing both herself and their little child. 10 years later, the Aniara is still operational, but with fewer passengers and even less enthusiasm than the previous years. After one of the most depressing parties to happen in deep space, the captain still pretends like everything is fine even when he has begun cutting himself, saying that the Aniara is a pioneering ship. He calls Mr. on stage and gives her an honorary medal for exemplary achievement for her beam, but she isn't happy anymore, nor does she care for the medal or the ship, quite frankly. Even the algae don't care anymore. It is the 24th year since the Aniara started her journey into the unknown reaches of space, devoid of all meaning, and some of the people still persist. However, they return to cultish and mystical thinking, in their solemn surroundings. Almost 6 million years have passed with the Aniara drifting in space when it finally arrives at a celestial body. No one is alive on board to witness it happening.